Hey everyone, Chef here. In this video, we're going to take a look at Power Holosmith. This profession has been one of the top damage dealing options for organized world versus world groups for a year or two now, and today we're going to take a look at the mechanics and playstyle of the profession so that you can feel comfortable playing it during your next raid. Power Holosmith offers a good mix of both spike and cleave damage. It has a few defensive cooldowns to make your life easier, and utilizes an active playstyle that lets you either hold cooldowns for a big upfront spike, or produce high amounts of damage over a longer period of time. This video uses timestamps, so if you wanted to know about something specific, you can use those to navigate to where in the video you want to go. Holosmith's unique profession mechanic is the Photon Forge, which replaces your weapon skills when active. Your Photon Forge auto attacks are a high damage, melee range cleave. Forge 2 is a short range leap. Forge 3 is a high damage AoE cleave. Forge 4 is a single target projectile attack that also pierces. And Forge 5 is an AoE crowd control. Using any of these abilities generates heat, as does simply existing in your Photon Forge. And if your heat ever reaches maximum, your Photon Forge is disabled while your heat returns to 0. Your unique profession utility skills are called Exceed skills, and these give you different types of bonuses when used at high heat thresholds. Starting with our gear, we're going to be using full Marauder, with the exception of our weapon and our back, which will use the Dragon stat instead. This is to allow us to reach a 55% crit chance, which is good enough for crit cap along with Fury and some of our other trait options. Engineers are unable to weapon swap while in combat, so for our single weapon we'll be using Rifle with a Sigil of Force and a Sigil of Stamina. You will also want a second weapon that you can use a Sigil of Bloodlust on, so that you can build stacks with your unused weapon set, and then switch to your main rifle. The reason we don't use a Sigil of Energy here is that Sigils of Energy proc both on weapon swaps, which Engineer can't do, as well as equipping and unequipping kits, which Engineer does do. Since you want to be doing this as part of your damage rotation and skill combos, you can't really guarantee that you'll get a Sigil of Energy proc when you need it. So instead, we'll use a Sigil of Stamina as a way to keep our endurance refilled during a fight. For our runes, we'll use Runes of the Scholar for power and ferocity, and for our relic, we'll take Relic of the Thief for extra damage. For utility skills, we'll use AED, Elixir S, Laser Disc, Elixir Gun, and Prime Light Beam. AED gives you a small heal when used, and a much larger heal if you take lethal damage while the effect is active. Try and use AED before you think you'll need it, rather than trying to use it in response to incoming damage. Elixir S is a stun break and full invuln that prevents you from using skills for its duration, but this can also be used if you need to exit your Photon Forge early before its cooldown is ready in order to avoid overheating. Laser Disc pulses damage around you when activated, with a longer duration when used above 50% heat, and your tool belt skill for Laser Disc, Blade Burst, also benefits from your heat level, dealing damage to enemies in front of you, with additional damage when used at higher heat levels. Elixir Gun is a kit, so it replaces your weapon skills when it's equipped. Within Elixir Gun, you'll mostly want to use E-Gun 3, Fumigate, which clears conditions from yourself and allies in front of you, E-Gun 4, which is a pulsing damage field and blast finisher, and E-Gun 5, which is a condition clear and a light field. Also, E-Gun's tool belt skill, Healing Mist, is an extra stun break alongside Elixir S. Finally, Prime Light Beam damages and knocks back players in front of you when used. And if it's used above 50% heat, it also leaves behind a field that continues to pulse damage and burning to enemies who stand in it. I do want to note one thing about these utility skills. This is a build that's oriented more towards a player who's learning to play Holosmith for the first time. So once you're comfortable playing it, and more importantly surviving while playing it, either Flamethrower or Bomb Kit are going to be better damage options for the utility slot that Elixir S currently takes up, and this is going to increase your damage considerably if you use that instead. But given how frail Holosmith can be in a fight while you're learning it, start out by using the Elixir, and once you can easily survive, you can swap it out for either of these kits. For our traits, we'll use Explosives, Firearms, and Holosmith. Our Explosives minor traits all synergize around explosions, with Steel-Packed Powder generating vulnerability when using an explosion, and Shaped Charge improving our damage when striking vulnerable opponents. Our final minor trait, Explosive Entrance, causes our first attack when entering combat to deal additional damage, and is also an explosion itself. This trait also resets after we dodge, so over the course of a fight, the damage from explosive entrance can end up being pretty significant. In our major traits, we take Glass Cannon, which lets us deal more damage while healthy, and Big Boomer, which lets us deal more damage to opponents less healthy than us, along with a minor healing amount from our explosion skills. Finally, with Explosive Temper, we gain a stacking charge of Ferocity every time we strike with an explosion skill. In this build, your only explosion skills are Prime Light Beam, Rifle 5, and Explosive Entrance, so try and continue to dodge even at max HP in order to continue generating explosions for your Ferocity stacks off of Explosive Entrance. These are going to be your most consistent explosions overall, unless you're using Bomb Kit instead of Elixir S. In Firearms, we gain the additional critical hit chance that allows us to cap out, with Sharpshooter causing our critical hits to inflict bleed, and Hematic Focus giving us Fury when we inflict bleed, as well as improving the effectiveness of Fury by 10%. In our major traits, No Scope gives us an additional source of Fury, as well as additional Ferocity while affected by it, and High Caliber gives us an additional 15% critical hit chance well inside 450 range, which you should usually be when using your high damage skills. Finally, with Modified Ammunition, we gain an extra bit of increased strike damage for each condition on a foe, which can be significant in the middle of a fight. Finally, in Holosmith, we get increased damage based on our current level of heat in our Photon Forge, up to a maximum of 15%. Our major trait Solar Focusing Lens increases the damage that we deal after entering or exiting our Photon Forge. Our Crystal Configuration Zephyr lets Forge 2 remove movement impairing conditions, and also lets us give super speed to any number of allies. And our Enhanced Capacity Storage Unit, or ECSU, increases the amount of heat that we can hold from 100% to 150%, giving us additional benefits on our traits and utility skills that care about heat level. With build details finished, let's now talk about how you actually play the profession mechanically. Holosmith's rotation relies on moving between a series of short 2 to 3 button skill combos in sequence in order to maintain your overall damage, and using times that you aren't in melee to wait for your cooldowns to sync back up in order to deliver a better spike later on when the opportunity presents itself. There's 3 types of skills that you'll use for these combos, which are all optimal to use at different times. Your Forge combos, your Exceed combos, and your Cooldown combos. Starting with your Forge combos, these are the skills that are available to you while your Photon Forge is active. Because of your ECSU, you want to spend as much time as possible between 100 and 150 heat to get those additional bonuses. Your heat generates at a rate of 2 per second while Forge is active. Each cast of Corona Burst generates an additional 12 across activation and pulses, and each completed auto attack chain generates an additional 6 per second. In your Forge rotation, you want to try and cast Corona Burst twice every time you activate your Forge, so this is one of your main sources of damage. So if we do some quick math, it means your Forge rotation will cost you at least 60 heat to complete. 12 from a completed Corona Burst, plus an extra 2 from the second activation. This also means spending at least 6 seconds in Forge while you wait for the Corona Burst cooldown for another 12 heat total. And then if you spend that entire time auto-attacking successfully, an extra 36 heat from that auto-attack chain for 60 total. In other words, avoid starting your heat rotation until you're at less than 90 stored heat, and lower is better to leave some room for mistakes, utility skills like Forge 2, or crowd control abilities. I usually try and enter Forge around 60 or 70 heat, and you can always use Forge 5 to build heat quickly if you need to get to that 100 threshold. Because your heat is effectively your damage while you're in Forge, you want to avoid using any of your other utility skills while you're in it, as this means you're gaining heat passively while doing no damage. While your Forge isn't active, your heat dissipates at a rate of 5 per second, starting 3 seconds after leaving your Forge, and then increases to 10 per second after 5 seconds of cooling. If you're starting from 150 or close to 150, that means you have around 15 seconds to use your other skills while you wait for your Forge to cool off. So after using your Forge skills, try and prioritize your Exceed skills while your stored heat is still between 100 and 150. Your 3 skills that benefit from this are Blade Burst, Laser Disc, and Prime Light Beam. Laser Disc pulses damage and bleeds around you while you're in melee, so you want to try and line up its use while your group is at close range to take full effect. Similarly, Prime Light Beam leaves a damaging field on the ground, so you maximize your damage with it when it's used in close range as well, especially if the enemy group is standing in a choke point or some other narrow space on the battlefield. Blade Burst is the least impactful of these three, but it still does significant damage to up to 5 targets in a cone in front of you, and it gets that extra damage boost when it's used at high heat. Since all three of these skills are somewhat situational and positioning dependent, you want to try and read when an enemy group is preparing to clash in melee, so that you can activate and use your Forge skills first, building up heat, and still leverage your Exceed skills after you've exited your Forge. Finally, your cooldown skills are your weapon and kit skills that you'll use while you wait for your other cooldowns to be ready. Your three impactful skills here are Blunderbuss, Rifle 2, Jump Shot, Rifle 5, and Acid Bomb in your Elixir Gun kit. The cooldown of Acid Bomb is 12 seconds, making it relatively easy to fit 2 casts into your cooldown rotation. One's close to the start, and one's close to the end. Like Prime Light Beam, Acid Bomb leaves a field on the ground that ticks for additional damage, so you want to find opportunities to use it while you're in melee. However, one thing to note about Acid Bomb here is that when you use it, it's going to knock you back a pretty good distance. Sometimes you actually want this to happen in order to reposition out of melee to somewhere safer, but other times you don't want it to happen at all, like if you're on a wall or with your back to a cliff. This knockback can be cancelled by using your weapon swap keybind immediately after the Acid Bomb cast finishes. This can be tricky to get right, but you can practice it during downtime, or in Armistice Bastion, or even in PvE to build up muscle memory. Also, while you're in the kit, Fumigate isn't really a meaningful damage source, but it's a great condition cleanser and does cleanse conditions on you, and there's usually some short gaps in those rotations anyway for you to find opportunities to use it. Outside of your Elixir Gun, Jump Shot does good damage and provides a short invulnerability window, and also lets you reposition either into or out of melee. And finally, Blunderbuss has the shortest cooldown time of your 3 weapon skills, so try and use it at the same time that you're using either Elixir Gun or a Jump Shot to get as many casts in as possible. Now this might all sound like a lot, and it kind of is. There's a lot of buttons going on here, but Holosmith skill combos have a nice flow to them. You start with your Forge skills to build heat, then you use your Exceed skills to benefit from that high heat, then you use your cooldown skills while your heat drops back down. You make the most effective use of your Forge skills while you're in melee for sure, but you can build heat from range if necessary in order to prepare for your Exceed skills. Using Jump Shot at the beginning and end of your Forge transitions lets you reposition effectively, either into or out of melee, while Blunderbuss, your space filling skill in the rotation, has a pretty wide effective range, hitting enemies all the way up to 900. And this is the trick to playing Holosmith effectively. If you're playing it in a group that pushes in melee and stays there forever during a fight, then sure, use as many of these skills chained together and off cooldown as you possibly can. But Holosmith skill combos are also very flexible, and they will benefit from waiting to save them and using them at the right moment in a fight, when your group is clashing in melee, to deliver upfront spike damage as well. In the following fight, try and identify for yourself when I'm repositioning to prepare to damage effectively, when I'm actually spiking, and when I'm pulling off to get my cooldowns back.
Blast. Get ready to push. We're going to push to the left in 3, 2, 1. Just start moving left. Move around that stuff. Get ready to push to the right and hit this veil. Dodge forward. Dodge to me. Wells behind us, and just big damage here. Grind. Big damage here. Alright, we're going to be pushing out towards spawn again. Out towards spawn. And then jump back on those downs. Jump back on these 2 downs. Grind these 2 downs out. Get this down. Yep, finish this down. Finish these couple. Just S key back. We're gonna push to the right and dodge right. Dodge to my tag, and just big damage here. Get ready to hard push in 3, 2, 1. Push in. Get it all the way in here. We're just stay on top of them. Follow my tag. Look where my tag is. Just keep pushing.
As one of the most common world versus world DPS professions currently, part of Holosmith's appeal is that it's relatively easy to comp for. It has 2 good personal stun breaks, it has a full invulnerability, it has a big heal when you time it correctly, and most importantly, it brings its own fury generation, meaning that it's not reliant on other professions to generate this boon. That said, Holosmith does struggle with other boon generation, in particular might, so it pairs well with professions that have strong might uptime like staff firebrands, or spellbreakers using phalanx strength. It also performs much better for groups fighting in heavy melee, where you can maximize your damage applications from Forge auto attacks, Corona Burst, Acid Bomb, and Laser Disc. Groups that choose to run Holosmith should be prepared to commit to melee for extended periods of time if they want to deal damage effectively, and this means having lots of protection, stability, and stun break availability so that you can survive while you're there. So if you like a melee-heavy playstyle that waits for the perfect moment to strike, or just delivers consistent, sustained damage, and can switch between those two styles as necessary, Holosmith is a profession that you're likely to enjoy. And if you decide to pick it up and try it for yourself, I hope that this video is a useful resource for you as you learn the profession. If there's anything I covered here that wasn't clear, or that you disagreed with, why not leave a comment to let me know? And if you want more videos like this, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I know it's been a while since we've done some guide and build videos, but I'm looking forward to getting back into it, and I've got quite a few videos in the backlog. I also stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you'd like to watch me play some of these builds in real time and ask questions there. But until then, I've been Chef, and enjoy the rest of your day.